Status ailments are a common occurrence in most video games, and Monster Hunter is no exception. Both hunters and monsters can cause these status effects with different methods of application. Hunters can be afflicted with a status ailment by simply taking the hit, while monsters have an unseen equation that determines their susceptibility. My name is Monster Hunter, and if Rise was going to give us elemental blights, then they should have given us an armor skill that could apply them. In today's video, I'll be discussing status effects and how the system works. Monster Hunter has plenty of status ailments, such as Malfestio's Confusion or Devil Joe's Defense Down. However, I'll be focusing on status effects that hunters can apply through their weapons. Hunters are not able to apply these status effects immediately because of status buildup and monster tolerance. There are several aspects that make up both aforementioned systems, so I'll break them down. You may notice that landing attacks with elements, such as fire, is represented by a small plume. You may also notice that not every attack with a status weapon shows their respective effect. This is because status ailments have a 33% chance to happen, or to proc. Buildup occurs whenever the status ailment procs, and is determined by the element value on the weapon. For instance, Mizar's Asterism, the Lucent Nargacuga switch axe, has a poison element of 18. Whenever status procs, poison buildup on the target increases by 18. However, it doesn't remain at 18 forever. Over time, the current status buildup will deplete by a fixed amount. This is known as decay. The databases I use, such as Kirinico and Monster Database, states that every 10 seconds, 5 points of buildup will be lost. To specify, it isn't losing 5 in a burst per 10 seconds, and instead losing 1 point every 2 seconds instead. Any other changes to a monster's decay stats will still represent that per second loss. The decay timer does not reset every time status procs and is always active. So if you apply 18 poison buildup, it will lose 1 point every 2 seconds, and if 4 seconds have passed and you apply another 18, you will then have 34 poison buildup. In order for the status effect to occur, the buildup value must reach the threshold of the current tolerance. Monster tolerances consist of 3 concepts: initial tolerance, tolerance increase, and maximum tolerance. Initial tolerance, or initial resistance, is the starting value threshold required to inflict a status ailment on the monster. Tolerance increase is the value added to the initial resistance every time the status is inflicted, and maximum tolerance is the maximum cap a monster's tolerance can reach. Once again, I'll be using Diablos as the example. Diablos' initial tolerance value to poison is 150. Whenever poison buildup reaches 150, Diablos then becomes poisoned, and has a tolerance increase of 240. As a result, Diablos' initial tolerance is now 390. Each subsequent poisoning will raise the value by 240 until it reaches the maximum tolerance of 1320. From then on, whenever it is poisoned, the initial tolerance will no longer receive an increase. Keep in mind, these values change depending on quest types, such as multiple monsters, event quests, and empowered hunts, such as Tempered, Frenzy, or Afflicted. I hope that section made sense. If you couldn't understand something, don't hesitate to ask in the comments. I will do what I can, or others may assist you as well. There are 6 status effects that hunters can inflict: poison, paralysis, sleep, blast, exhaust, and stun. Each of these ailments have different effects, durations, and/or unique rules. Poison deals a fixed amount of damage over a period of time. The amount of damage dealt and the duration of the effect varies from monster to monster. Pookie Pookie is a monster that is synonymous with poison, and as such, its tolerance starts higher than normal. The poison duration lasts for 15 seconds and it deals 450 total damage. Basarios, on the other hand, has a slightly higher average resistance to poison, but its duration lasts for 35 seconds and deals 1050 total damage. That might have something to do with the fact that its hit zone values are all doo-doo butter, so it's probably just to make it easier and give you an alternative rather than just slapping it with a dragon weapon and hoping you don't bounce. Paralysis renders the monster temporarily immobile, similar to how the monster looks when caught in a shock trap. There are two forms of paralysis weakness in monsters: duration and resistance. The average duration of paralysis on monsters lasts for 10 seconds, with the average initial tolerance being 180 with a high tolerance increase. Some early game monsters suffer from 12-second durations, 130 or less initial tolerance, and around 150 tolerance increase. Great Easy Cheese, or Great Izuchi, has an initial tolerance of 130, a tolerance increase of 142, and a duration of 12 seconds. This means it's easier to paralyze it, and you gain a benefit from the amount of time that it stays paralyzed. Diablos, on the other hand, has an initial tolerance of 100, a tolerance increase of 120, and a duration of 7 seconds. It may be easier to paralyze in the long run, but the duration leaves much to be desired. Sleep puts monsters to sleep for a duration. While asleep, and correct me if I'm wrong, the monster slowly regenerates health and takes double damage from the first hit it receives. Something people don't understand, especially when playing in groups without vocal communication, is how to tell when the monster is going to sleep. The monster stops what it's doing and performs an animation where it starts to lie down. It's a tad more difficult when monsters like Daimyo Hermitar who sleep standing up. Another telltale sign is that the music will stop playing, unless you're on an arena map. Sleep normally lasts for 40 seconds across most monsters, including Elder Dragons. The only difference between them is their tolerances. Blast deals a fixed amount of damage to the part that activated the effect. It builds up and decays like other status ailments, but monsters that are weak to Blast don't receive bonus damage and instead just have lowered tolerance. A drawback to Poison and Paralysis is that they cannot apply Buildup when the monster is already under effect by the same ailment. Blast doesn't suffer those drawbacks as the effect happens instantly without any duration associated with it, but the tolerance increase may skyrocket to the max threshold. Exhaust deals a fixed amount of damage to the monster's current stamina. It isn't an actual element and can be applied by dealing any form of impact or blunt damage. When Exhaust Buildup reaches the threshold, the monster loses 100 or more of their current stamina and will flinch. Think of it like Blast, but to the monster's stamina instead. Something to note, Elder Dragons cannot be fatigued, even if the exhaust status activates. Stun, or KO, briefly immobilizes the monster after striking the head with impact damage. Like other status ailments, this value is built up, but the application is dependent on the weapon type itself and not the element or damage that it deals. For instance, it takes the same amount of hits to stun the monster with a rarity 1 weapon as it would with a rarity 9, because the stun value is attributed to the attack itself. That isn't universal across the board either, as Hammer may have an easier time stunning than the Hunting Horn or Lance shield attacks due to higher stun value and ease of access without needing to do too much setup or resource expenditure. To get more in depth, Hammer Strength Charged Brutal Big Bang, say that 5 times fast, deals a combined total of 110 stun buildup as the first 2 hits are 20, with the last being 75. A safer option is to do Charged Upswing, as their values are usually above average and require less time to charge with faster frames and recovery time. There are other ways to exhaust and stun the monster that don't revolve around just Hammer and Hunting Horn. Greatsword, Sword and Shield, both lances, Exhaust File Switch Axe, Impact File Charge Blade, Blunt Kinsect, and Exhaust Ammo or arrows are some of the ways exhaust and stun damage can be applied. To recap, there are 6 universal status ailments that are built up through a percentage chance and varies on a monster's resistance to achieve the effect. Elemental weapons may be more effective in the long run in terms of damage, but it doesn't hurt to carry a status effect every now and again to really give yourself or others the edge. Just try to pay more attention to when a monster is going to sleep. Oh, and definitely try not to stack 2 of them together. Nothing hurts more than finally getting the stun or paralysis, only for the paralysis or stun to pop in. What could have been 20 seconds of advantage is now 13 or less. Anyway, my name is Monster Hunter, and they should have added a skill to allow elemental blights. Until next time.